Coming up on the program, we're going to harvest some of our leeks and tell you a little bit about how to store them. And we're going to work this bed like we did that bed last year to prep it for spring, and it really works very well, and we'll show you why and how. All that and more coming up today on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener is sponsored in part by, for all your non-GMO, heirloom, organic, vegetable, flowers, and herb seeds, visit dollarseed.com. Sioux Growing Supply, located in Wausau, Wisconsin, focusing on certified leaf compost, an excellent amendment for poor soil, retains moisture and adds nutrients, which equals less watering. Available in Sioux organic seed starting kits, pre-filled trays and pots, bag and bulk. Visit SiouxCompost.com. Don't poison your soil with municipal water. Attach a body, mind, and soil hose and filter. Free shipping exclusively through the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. Just click on the body, mind, and soil icon. Authentic Haven brand soil conditioner for the home gardener. Easy to brew, 100% organic. Visit MinureTea.com. Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Joy Baird. As we get later on in the fall, it's time to harvest some of these cool weather crops, some of the very first ones we put in the ground. Leeks being one of them. Leeks are one of the longest growing vegetables in your garden, between 130 and 150 days based on the variety. We're up in the front yard garden here, and these are American flag leeks. And we've got about, I think about 2 dozen here. Very nice leeks. Now the difference between these and the ones at the large garden is simply that these have a much larger diameter. And this could be for a variety of different reasons. Nutrients, moisture, the amount of sunlight it gets, the amount of cool temperatures it gets. Where we're at here on the front yard garden is approximately 20 miles farther north than where the large garden is. And based on the type of summer that the two areas get, we have a tremendous difference in productivity of certain plants based on that reasoning. Now most of you, and probably all of you, don't have the availability to have gardens 20 miles apart and several of them. But this is what we are able to work with, and it teaches us a lot of information about climate and what grows better in what climate. And with the house being right there, a lot of the sunlight doesn't get to the garden until the peak of the afternoon. So that dictates on the productivity of the plants as well. So let's look at these leeks here. Now this one here is going to seed, and you'll notice it's going to seed. Leeks typically will go, leeks are a biennial, which means they will go to seed the second year. We can leave all of these in the ground, and next year, come spring, they will start putting top growth on just like this. There'll be a massive flower with hundreds of little black seeds. They're identical to onion seeds. Now, we could do that, or we could choose just to dig this up. Now, we're going to go ahead and harvest these, but if you're going to dig this up, this portion would not really be would not be edible. It's not like a garlic scape. We're looking at the edible portion being the white at the bottom. So let's go ahead and get it here with the shovel. It does help when the soil is moist, and you really don't want to get in there and try to rip it up because you're going to tear this. These are buried relatively deep because of how we planted them with the dibble, and the deeper you get it, the more bleached on the stalk it is, which is the edible portion. So I'm going to get in here. I'm going to harvest a couple of these. Now these should be, there we go. Okay, so that's one of them there. Now to get to the bleached portion here, now that is all edible there. It does have a tinge of green to it, but it is edible. Ideally, you would want this to be as bleached as possible. And we've talked about this on how to do that. And as you take more layers back, it becomes more and more bleached, more and more white. So let's go ahead and dig another one up just to see where we're at. Garden fork, garden shovel is good. A trowel may work based on how loose your soil is. All right, let's see what we got here. It's going to have a massive root system. Oh yeah. Okay, this is the way all leeks should look. I'm going to get rid of some of this extra. There we go. Try to get rid of some of this. Now you see this bulb at the bottom. That is broom handle diameter there. It pudges up just a little bit, little protrusion there of a bulb. Now all of that is edible. We'll take some more of these off of here. Now, to store these, and you can harvest these throughout the winter months if you're in the northern hemisphere or northern portions of the United States. If you're in the southern portions, these you can leave them in the ground. I believe most of those will be planted kind of this time. But the problem we have here in the northern portions of the United States is we get winter, we get snow, and the stuff freezes like a rock. So you can do two things here. One, you can come in here and harvest these all up, and we can take them inside, and we could just leave them like this in a root cellar, basement, or crawl space, and they'll last for a good little while. You can also take and cut the portion off here, the edible portion, and we can freeze it. Now when you store these, you want to take and cut the top portions off just like you would see in the grocery store. Now if you want to know how to freeze these, we'll include a link in the show notes below of how Holly did it last year on a Canning What You Grow episode. Very simple, real easy. You don't have to have any canning equipment. It's just a blanching of hot water and you freeze it. It's real simple. So the other method you could do to help prolong these and leave these in the ground longer is take leaves or straw and mound up to insulate these, and then you can harvest them all through the winter months, assuming that your mulch and your straw and your leaves are big enough that it doesn't freeze in the ground. So American flag leeks, you started from a little seed. All of these were started from seed way back in January, some 10 months ago, and now we are able to harvest them. If you do store them inside, you can go ahead and trim the roots off as well. So if you've never grown leeks, it's one of the easiest crops you can grow. You just got to start with good seed. And if you don't have seed, you can certainly buy the starts at your local garden center early on in the spring. Growing in containers is a great way to expand your growing area, whether you have ground to grow in or not. We're on the porch here, and we've got two different plants here in the root trapper and root maker here, and we've got it in a self-contained water reservoir. And this is simply a shelf that we had in the attic. We flipped upside down that had walls, and it has about 1.5 inches of water capabilities of holding here. So what we're looking at here is a cabbage plant, a purple cabbage, and this was a broccoli plant, because it's been ate up. Now the great advantage to growing in containers, or there's a couple of them. One, you can put them in a reservoir like this so it can self-water itself. Two, you're adding good organic compost and high nutrient value material to the growing container so the plants can grow the best that they possibly can grow. And three, if you have an issue like we have here with this broccoli plant getting ate up, you can find out what's going on. Now, if we had 30 or 40 of these in a big row in a garden, it would be a much more difficult procedure to find out what's causing this. Now, we have found what's causing this, and this is the second one I've pulled off. It's these little green worms. I'm going to call them cabbage worms because I don't have any better term for them. They're a little green worm, and that's pretty, and it's been eating this purple cabbage here, and then I believe, and obviously it's been eating on this broccoli plant as well. So we just pull them and toss them, and you can look, and they'll possibly can be under the leaves or in the head here as well, which I'm not seeing any of them right there. But growing in containers, you can isolate, and you can, if we had 2 or 3 or 4 containers here, we could pull them off to the side and let them set for a day and then isolate them to find out what was eating on the plants. So growing in containers is a great way to expand your growing area, whether you have ground to grow in or not. So when it comes to fall, we can save the corn stalks, which we are with some of these, for fall decorations. But the rest of them, we want to get in the compost pile. Now, throwing these in the compost pile as is perfectly fine. But the key to compost is the smaller the particles, the quicker it's going to break down. So we're going to take our lawnmower here. We've dropped the blade, or dropped the base as low to the ground as it will go. And we're going to use the lawnmower with the bagger to mulch this. Now, if you had a wood chipper, this would be a great material to throw in the wood chipper to turn to like a powder or fiber to blow it back in your garden. Or if you have other means of shredding it, that's a good way to go. This is what we have available, and this is what we're going to use. Now also what we have is some egg cartons, the cardboard kind, that we're going to throw in here on top of this. We're just going to mulch all of that up in the bagger, then we'll take it to the compost pile, and this will greatly increase the speed of the breakdown process with the corn stalks, so they're not staying around for a year or 2 years to break down. So we're just going to get going here. Now, one thing you want to be sure is there's nobody around, because you're going to be raising this up and down, which is not at the recommended manufacturer's requirement for this piece of equipment, but it will get the job done. All right, that makes very quick work. Now, I could have taken my snips and just spent all afternoon doing this, but I didn't want to do that. So this worked really well, and we're just going to take the bagger off, and we've got a whole bunch of very small material that will work in the compost pile. And some of this is a green material, so that's going to add in the heating up process as we get later on in the fall. We can put some more grass to it, and this will get that internal temperature up high enough to cook the compost. So break down your materials, whether lawnmower, wood chipper, or whatever other means you have, so it breaks down quicker and you can use that compost next spring in your garden. And we've got this bed here where we had garbanzo beans or chickpeas on the back side here, and we had some black eyed peas on the front. Didn't do super, but this is the first year growing those. So what we're doing here is we're working this bed. Now last year, if you recall, we worked this bed very heavily. We did the same thing with this bed. Weeded it and then mulched it heavy with leaves in late fall, and we did not disturb the soil. We left it. We came back in the spring. First day out here, we put tomato cages to mark where the tomatoes were going to go, and we never touched it until we put the tomato starts in the ground. Now there is some weeds in this bed, yes, but also the leaves that we had mulched about 8 to 12 inches high has completely vanished, and they broke down and they went in the soil. So the concept is the same over on this bed. Now this is a lot of work, but it's one bed a year that we're doing, and it makes a tremendous difference on the weeds that come up the following year. Now these tomato plants will get removed here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll mulch heavy again with leaves, with the intentions of the more leaves we put on top, the less the seeds of weeds will be able to germinate because of the lack of sunlight. So I've worked a little bit on the back side there, and basically all we're doing here is trying to pull what weeds out we can, which is not that successful. I've got a garden fork and I got a shovel, and all I'm doing is taking and working the soil, and you see that this is get as many roots as possible out of it, putting in that the trash can there, and then we'll take it back to the compost pile. But I'm working the soil, and you see how all of these roots will try to regrow again and put top growth. And this is a perfect example right here This is the root under the ground, and this here is top growth that it's going to try to put growth on. Just like you know, they're very tough, and they're designed to continue to grow even if the top is cut off or damaged. So that's what we're working on, to get as many of these roots out of the soil, which will greatly reduce the amount of weeds that will come back next spring, even on top or even underneath the amount of leaves that we'll mulch and put on top of this bed. So it's going to be a little work here, but we're going to get at it and make this bed very nice, and then we'll come back and I'll show you some of the added materials that we're going to add to this bed to help revitalize some of the soil, revitalize the soil in it, so we're ready to go next spring. All right, so we've worked this bed. Holly and myself worked this bed, and the soil is not the most pleasant to work here. We've got a lot of clumps. It's a very dense soil. Still got a lot of weeds, even though we've tried to pull as many roots out as possible. No matter how good you do it, you're always going to have roots unless you take like a screen and go through this 1 foot deep and sift it, which that would we're not going to do that. If you choose to do that, that's fine. So what we're going to do here to help revitalize the soil, we're going to do 3 different things. 2 now and 1 in the spring. Now what this bed will be, this bed is about 3 foot wide and 10 to 12 foot long. This will be our cabbage bed. We have understood and learned how to successfully grow garlic, tomatoes properly, and sweet corn successfully. Now it's time to learn how to grow cabbage successfully. We've struggled with this in the past. So what we're going to do, 2 things today. We're going to do 3 things we've done. We've worked this bed, got as many roots out of it as possible. Secondly, we're going to take these coffee grounds that we got from our local coffee shop and add to this bed. If you don't have the resource of free coffee grounds, you may have the resource of good rotted manure, and that will also work well in this. Typically with coffee shops, you call them up and say, hey, I'm a gardener, I'd like some old coffee grounds. Can I just bring a bucket in, you fill it up, and I'll pick it up the next day. We've never had a problem with anybody that we've called. So we're going to begin to add these coffee grounds and the filters to the bed here. And then we're going to work it into the bed, and you think, well, this seems like a lot of coffee grounds, and it is. Coffee grounds have some nitrogen in it, and it's a great food for worms. All right. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to work this or level this out as best I can across the whole bed, work it in, and then we will go ahead and go to the next step in our soil building process. All right, so what I'm doing here, I've leveled them off. I've leveled the piles of coffee grounds off, in addition to leaving the filters, because that'll all break down. Now, I'm not working that into the soil, and for 2 reasons. One, over the next 6 months, before spring comes, we're going to have rain, we're going to have precipitation, we're going to have snow, and this will gradually work itself down. Now, if I wasn't going to add compost on top of this, I would definitely work it into the soil to get it below grade level for the worms and the microorganisms to start breaking it down. Since I'm going to add compost, I don't need to do that because I'm putting a layer of soil on top of this, and all together it will work down and begin to break the soil clumps and loosen the soil up in this bed. So I've got 2 bags of certified leaf compost that I am going to add to the bed here. And this is about 2 cubic feet of compost per bag. And I'm just going to try to level it off to the point where I've got about an inch or so of compost going to use the hoe here. And again, with this compost, we can see a number of very healthy worms in this. Lots and lots of worms just in that one bag of compost. Little colonies of worms coming in the bag there, which is really nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to take my garden hoe here and just level it off the best I can. And as the winter goes, this will all break down more and more. And then prior to winter, this is another step I guess I didn't incorporate into it. What we'll do is when the leaves fall, we're going to put about a foot of leaves on top of this bed to just put everything together, because leaves are a very nutrient dense natural material in addition to the compost and the coffee grounds. And it's working this bed. It's going to really help the success of the cabbage, and we'll probably the cabbage that we're going to grow in the spring. In addition to all of that, in the spring prior to planting, we're going to soak the bed down with authentic Haven brand Moo tea, which is a soil conditioner, which will tie everything together and will allow us to have successful and healthy and large cabbage for next year. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next time for more organic gardening and food preserving. I'm Joy Barrett, and this has been the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.